Coming up today on LinkedIn News Live. What does it take to build some of the world's most creative and culturally diverse advertising campaigns? The CEO of powerhouse ad agency Walter Isaacson tells us how he does it. Plus, Tyler Perry gives two LinkedIn members advice on being authentic and persistent in their job search. All that next. Hello, I'm Caroline Fairchild, and welcome to LinkedIn News Live, where the business conversation begins with you. It's February 11th, and here's a quick look at the top headlines trending right now on LinkedIn. CDC doubles down on double masking, airlines rerouting flights to warmer outposts over business hubs, and Aunt Jemima has a new name. Let's take a deeper look into that story. PepsiCo unveiled the brand overhaul Tuesday after announcing it would drop the 131-year-old name and logo last year following civil unrest over racial injustice. The new name, the Pearl Milling Company. The new look will hit shelves in June. We've seen a ton of commentary on LinkedIn on this news story, and we're going to share a few of them with you right now in the stream. All right, we have this one from Luciano Cervenia, who's saying that many shoppers love the more personal auntie image. Not sure the new one does the trick. And then we're seeing a lot of polar opposite comments as well. We're bringing in one right now from Lola Bakari, who says PepsiCo has finally addressed one of the biggest hashtag inclusive marketing opportunities, reminding us all that it is never too late to right historical wrongs. And for more comments like these, you can join the conversation on LinkedIn to the right of your news feed or by clicking into the search box. All week, we're highlighting the career paths and accomplishments of Black professionals through our series, Conversations for Change. And no one has had quite the career of trailblazing than Aaron Walton, our guest on today's show. He is the CEO of Walter Isaacson, and he is going to come on to talk to us about his unique perspective on the power of culture to create campaigns for brands such as Lexus, Tequila, Nike, and more. Aaron, I'm thrilled to have you on LinkedIn News Live.
It is a joy to be here. Thank you, Caroline.
I've been looking forward to speaking with you all week, but we have to start with this news item that we have with Aunt Jemima. This feels like it happened almost overnight, but has this been decades in the making, this name change?
Yeah, well, I don't know how long PepsiCo has been thinking about it. I'm glad they did, because I think it addresses something that has been, brewing in the multicultural community for a long time. And it's interesting because it almost, it's been so omnipresent for so long that you forget about it. But bravo for them for being culturally sensitive and understanding that it does have an impact on how we think about the brand and more importantly how we think about ourselves. So I'm glad they did it. And I saw one of the comments from one of the folks on LinkedIn, and they said, you know what, they were right. It doesn't matter how long. The fact of the matter is that they finally made the change, and that's what's important.
And what I find so interesting about this news story, Aaron, when I wanted to bring you on to discuss, is that this is really sentimental of just the change that we've seen in terms of the role of marketing within corporate America this summer with all the civil unrest that we're seeing and this cultural sensitivity that you've been working your whole career on. We're now seeing a lot more voices speak out against it. From your seat, how has the role of the marketer changed this year?
Great question. Here's what I will tell you. It's really interesting because what you're seeing and I'm assuming we're talking about CMOs, but it's not just CMOs responsibility, but they have to start taking on more responsibility as it relates to building the right culture internally, because that has an impact on how we present ourselves externally. And so I think one of the things that I'm seeing with the really smart, aggressive CMOs is that they're taking on that responsibility, working with HR, understanding the role that diverse talent has in a company, in an organization, and how that can really impact the output of the staff.
And I'm seeing a lot of diverse voices joining us in the stream right now. We have Dolores from Texas, Andrea and Mark from Florida, Stephen from New Jersey, and Patrick from Kenya. And Henry is actually joining us from Poland. So thanks for joining us on
Awesome.
Right.
We have an international group of diverse
international group of
great.
viewers here on LinkedIn News Live. We have lots of people joining us. And I'm here with Aaron Walton. If you are just joining us, he's one of the most creative minds in the ad agency business. So if you have questions about anything, I would say. Aaron and I had a great conversation pre-show, so I think he can answer anything, but specific to our conversation today on the role of marketing as we think about 2021 and where that's moving, let us know in the stream right now. Aaron, you're the head of your own ad agency right now, but I want to go back to the beginning of your career. We're seeing so much conversation around cultural sensitivity right now, but were these conversations happening 20, 30 years ago when you started?
They really weren't. And sadly, what happens when you don't have those conversations, you create an environment where people don't necessarily feel like they can be their authentic self. And, one of the things that I really wanted to do and continue to kind of work on every day is to make sure that you create an environment where the team members can feel like they are being respected and have a voice at the table in a way that reflects their unique cultural perspective, in a way that someone sitting across from the table may not be aware of or may not have had exposure to. And that kind of environment I see today happening in ways that it wasn't happening in the past. And I think part of the reason is that people understand, or CMOs understand, that it ultimately drives more revenue. It ultimately makes a difference in how brands are perceived and sold and accepted with a wider range of consumers.
And Aaron, I have to share for those in the stream, one of the things that you're known for is your style. I was actually sharing with Aaron that I was going to wear to today's interview. But there had to be moments in your career where you didn't feel comfortable bringing your whole self to work, dressing how you wanted to dress. Yeah. How did you persevere? What was the moment where you said, hey, I'm just going to come as me and we'll see what happens?
That's such a great question. And I get when I started my career, and I'm, joking, I loved it. I had such an amazing experience at Pepsi. But everyone was wearing a navy blue suit, a white shirt, and a red tie. And that was kind of the uniform. And, it wasn't who I was, but it was what, was expected in that environment. And then there was a woman, Brenda Barnes, who came to Pepsi. She was transferred up from Frito-Lay, and she kind of broke that norm. And she started literally kind of making sure that people were feeling comfortable in their own skin and it made a huge difference because you didn't feel like you had to pretend. You didn't feel like you had to cover. And for so many, I'm a gay Black man, and what was obvious was that I was Black, but maybe not so obvious at the time was that I was gay. And I never felt that I could be who I was because I didn't want it to impact my career. And at one point, you just sit back and say, you know what? Enough's enough. The people are asking me to bring my ideas and to bring who I am to the table, and I can't do that if I push just some of that aside and only give them the part that I think they want to see. And the second that I did that, things opened up. People started to appreciate who I was, what I did, and the work started to get better. So, I look back, I thank Brenda Barnes. She's not with us anymore, but she was a tremendous influence in helping me to understand the role that being authentic and being who you are really meant.
We certainly need more Brendas in the world to create inclusive cultures.
We do.
But Aaron, you actually think that we need more Brendas in the world to just be a competitive company, particularly in the marketing and the advertising space. I actually want to bring up something that you said recently in a podcast with Ad Age. You said, when you're in-house, sometimes you can get mired in the corporateness. If companies are bringing the work in-house, they have to be very, very careful to make sure there's a level of independent thinking that may ruffle feathers, that may make you uncomfortable. Sometimes that chaos, that collision is where those bright sparks happen. Aaron, chaos, collision, uncomfortable, ruffle feathers, these are not terms that corporate leaders that I interview have in their world. So talk to me about this. Why do we need to have chaos?
Here's what I think. And I really believe this with all my heart. And by the way, the science also proves this, right? But when you have people who have really passionate points of view, which are informed by their culture, it's informed by who they are, where they grew up. I mean, just a number of different things. When those two forces kind of come together, there can be an explosion, but we think of explosions sometimes in a negative sense. Think about it in terms of fireworks and like these things coming together and those moments of collisions. That's where some of the insight comes. When I'm talking to you, Caroline, and I'm saying, this is my experience, this is who I am and this is how I'm moving through the world as a, gay Black man, and you're coming and talking about your experience as a white, straight female, we're going to have a different point of view. But what happens is you're going to do everything you can to marshal the resources to convince me that your point of view matters. And I'm going to do the same. And in the process, what ends up happening is that we find these nuggets of insights that are so much more expandable than just the one thing that we thought about. So I look at it as those explosions, those kind of collisions in a really positive way. I guess another way to look at it, if you look at collide and you don't think about it in terms of, bumping into each other, but think of it like a kaleidoscope where you have these beautiful individual pieces of art that are placed in a device, and then you turn it, and when you turn it, it becomes even more beautiful than just that one piece. So I look at it as a positive way, as long as we do it respectfully.
And Aaron, you've created a lot of these kaleidoscopes throughout your career. When you think about those moments of collusion, what are the ad campaigns that you've worked on that you're most proud of, where those moments of tension or chaos, as you may, have turned into some of the major ads that we're seeing on our televisions?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, they're probably not the things that you would expect. We just recently did a PSA for AIM, and I really loved it because it was poetic. It was actually written by a spoken word artist, but it talked honestly about making sure that diverse voices were seen and included and participated in discussions and weren't stereotyped. And I think we often marginalize those voices. And I'm particularly proud of that campaign, one, because of what it stood for, or what it stands for, but also, trying to shoot celebrities in a pandemic, and trying to make it look beautiful was a testament to our production team. But I think of recent, that's one of the pieces that I'm really, really proud of.
Trying to produce anything in this pandemic is challenging, and shout out to my producers
I know.
on stage right now. Bless them.
Yes.
All right, saying hello to more members who are joining us: Samia from France, Matthew from Colorado, Timothy in Minnesota, Esther in Arizona, and Patrick from England. We have some comments also here, Aaron. Ayana and Omar and others in the stream are saying that change must start at the top, setting culture and understanding what diversity actually means. Which brings me to a question I had for you, Aaron. We've been watching all year as the rhetoric, the words that we use to talk about diversity and inclusion, they're changing. People are changing. Diversity, inclusion, what does that mean? What is that actually changing in terms of the culture of your organization? But you've been an early advocate of changing the terms that we use. Why do we need to change and speak more specifically about these problems?
Sure. So here's what I think. I think the viewer's actually right. Change has to start in the boardroom. It has to be at the executive level. It has to be throughout the organization. If in fact we want to, or your organization wants to win. D&I think, diversity inclusion, I think has had a bad rap because we haven't really explained why it's important. So people generally think it's a check the box kind of thing. I have to have so many women, so many Blacks, so many Hispanic, blah, 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 blah. The reality is we've not talked about why that's important. And the reason that is important is when we bring diverse voices to the table, we find, and actually the research has supported it. McKinsey did a study that showed that companies that were more gender diverse were 12% more likely to outperform their competitors. Companies that were more culturally diverse or ethnically diverse were 34% more likely to outperform their competitors. So it is not just about, I want to face the world the way the world wants to face me, and that's important. It's also, if you're running a business, there are some real bottom line benefits from doing it, beyond the fact that it makes the people that work in your organization feel respected and honored. And so I think part of D&I, we look at it, we don't call it traditional diversity inclusion. We look at it in terms of disruption and innovation, because when you bring diverse voices around a table into a room and you give them an opportunity to speak up, what happens is it disrupts the normal kind of patterns of behavior that you would have if you did not have those voices. And those normal patterns of behavior often lead to blind spots, and those where the opportunities we don't see, and we like, oh, we missed that. Well, why did we miss it? Because we didn't have someone else that didn't think differently around the table.
Right. Well, I'm seeing some members in the stream asking about these incentives that we're talking about when we use rhetoric around diversity and inclusion. Dana's asking, is money revenue pushing the change with these companies, or is it genuine social responsibility? And I'll add to Dana's question, have you seen that mix shift this year in terms of companies getting the incentives right for why they're doing this? From your seat, has it changed?
Yeah, it has changed. And I think the reason it's changed is because the world is changing, and it's no longer business as usual, it's business unusual. And unusual means that we're not going to do the same thing the same way and expect, a different result. I genuinely think that what has happened in this country, around the world, in terms of the social unrest, has awakened a part of our soul, a part of our consciousness that most good people want to see change happen. And I do believe that there are some companies, most companies that we've worked with, have wanted to make a statement and wanted it to be meaningful and authentic. There were some that reached out and they said, we need to, put out a statement about Black Lives Matter. And I said, well, you can't do that if you haven't been treating the Black lives within your own organization with the level of respect that would suggest that you believe that. So you do have to do the work internally. You do have to start thinking about the team members that work for you as customers. And would you treat those customers, how do you want to treat those internal customers? Because they are going to be advocates for our brands, for our companies. They're out telling their friends and their associates and their allies about why they are proud to work for the organization that they work for. Give them a reason to be proud. And that's not going to come without being authentic to that.
And Aaron, before I let you go, you mentioned my whiteness at the beginning of this conversation, and I would add to that my white privilege. And when we think about the marketing industry right now, most CMOs are white and they're male. How do you invite them into this discussion of chaos and collision? What role do they play in terms of joining us at the table for this discussion?
Sure. Here's what I would say. You're absolutely right. The majority are, pretty much straight white men. I think that I have come in contact with so many great men who want to do the homework, who want to actually be agents of change and want their organizations to reflect the world that we're living in. And so part of it is rolling up your sleeves and making sure that you communicate not only to the organizations that you lead, but to the partners that you're working with about the importance of this. I look at someone like John Dillon, who's a co-chairman of AIM, and he's walking the walk, right? He's there, he's part of the organization, he's leading the charge, with Lizette and with Gilbert to make sure that the data is used. We've got the information, now we just have to put it to practice. And so it's really about having the will and the courage to stand up and say, just because we did it this way yesterday doesn't mean that's the way it has to be done tomorrow. And if we want to recruit bright, smart people that want to be a part of something that is is, transformative, then we're going to have to start, addressing that and addressing it soon.
Absolutely. Erin, when I called you a trailblazer at the beginning of this segment, I can think you were one of the biggest trailblazers that I've interviewed. So I so appreciate you joining us on LinkedIn News Live, and I so enjoyed the conversation. I hope we can do it. Speaking of the world we want to live in, I hope that we can do this in person sometime.
I would love to. I'm a big fan. I follow the show, and so continue to do great things. And I always find something really unique and interesting after I watch it. So thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Erin. Yes. All right. We'll see you soon.
Awesome.
That was Aaron Walton. He's the CEO of Walton Isaacson. All right, we have a special treat for you now. Looking for your next opportunity and being able to bring your whole self to work starts when you're looking for a job. Right now, here we have guest editor for Conversations for Change, Tyler Perry, giving job-seeking advice to 2 of our members.
As we're on our journey, we're following all the signs, like you said, and we're pursuing our passions. But considering the traumas of this past year and years prior, dealing with racial reckoning and devastation of COVID-19, how do we as young Black professionals bring our most confident and authentic, instinctive selves forward? How do we do that?
Oh, listen, there should be no compromise there. There should be absolutely no compromise there. I was talking to somebody earlier about Oprah and how, during the early years of her talk show, like people just sometimes forget what a phenomenon that was. And also how important it was that she understood how to navigate inside of corporate, inside of the world that she was in, right? So what I would say to you is that the instinct is going to be the key to moving you through all of it. And the instinct to move right, to move left, to take this job, to not take this job, to do this deal, to not do that deal. I've had to lean on that my entire career. So instinctually, if you lean on that just as Black professionals, even in corporate America, where there are not a whole lot of us, that's instinctually on figuring out how to move through and navigate through can lead you a long way, man. I really believe that.
Due to the pandemic, I've been encouraged to be more creative, and I'm wanting to transition from corporate America to entrepreneurship. And my question is, how would you encourage one to be brave and move over to that other lane?
I'm not telling you to do this, but I remember, I would get a job in between plays when I was trying to get the play up, and I would ask them for time off to go do the play, and these jobs would tell me no. And I would hear this voice inside of me that I believe to be the voice of God saying, quit. I'm not telling you to quit your job. Trust me, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying to you is this understanding and knowing that there is something inside of you that is leading you to do something else, that pulling that you feel to do something else and be more entrepreneurial. I think that there's a way that you can manage that at the same time holding on to a corporate gig, and maybe even taking less responsibilities in the corporate gig so that you have an income that's still coming in to a degree where you can really focus on making your dream come true. However, there's going to come a time where you're going to have to make a choice of which vine do I hold on to and which do I let go of. So if you feel really strongly that that is your dream and something you're supposed to do, and again, I'm not telling you to quit your job. What I'm telling you to do is that you can do both as you start to build your base to get you to a place where your entrepreneurship will sustain you.
How can companies be more intentional about the recruitment and the development of African Americans in the corporate environment?
I think that's going to happen with companies, with more people who look like us being in positions of power. So if companies are not putting people in positions of power, then that's going to be very difficult to do. I know everybody's trying to move toward change and move toward more diversity. But what I found in that is this, even now in my company, if I hire someone who's a white person to run the department here in Atlanta, that person will usually hire more white people. If I have hired someone who's gay in a department, that person will usually hire more gay people. So rather than all of it being racism, some of it is just being about who do you know, right? So I think if corporate America starts to put people in places in power where they want to see more diversity, then that will happen because we choose from who we know when we're hiring.
That was Tyler Perry, director, writer, philanthropist, as well as our guest editor for Conversations for Change. Tomorrow, my colleague Andrew Seaman will be with you for a conversation with one expert about how to stand out in your resume and the job interview. I'm Caroline Fairchild. Thanks for joining us on LinkedIn News Live.